Welcome. You're listening to Doopy Deep with Dr. Nikki. This is the place where witty, irreverent, opinionated perspective meets serious, fact-based discussion. Featuring our host, Dr. Nikki Coleman, and her co-host, Tomas Bell. You can also join in the discussion during our live tapings by following us on Spreaker.com. Now, the doctor is in. It's time to get Doopy Deep.
Good morning, good afternoon. How are you guys? Welcome to, so sadly, our last episode for the summer edition of Doopy Deep with Dr. Nikki. I'm so sad to say goodbye. I feel like I want to sing the Boys to Men song, but just so you know, we will be back in the spring. Did I just skip a whole rest of the year? I skipped a whole 6 months of the year. We will be back in the fall, starting in September. But we're going to take a little bit of a summer hiatus after today's show. It has been so much fun being with you guys, and we want to end our summer series talking about hashtag relationship goals. So it should be an interesting conversation, don't you think, Tomas?
I really do, because, I keep a relationship goal. I don't know about the next one, but Lord knows I do.
And if you don't, you might want to examine that for yourself.
Hashtag examine your relationship goals. Hashtag that.
That's a long hashtag. I'm excited to talk about this topic. So, I used to say, like, if you get I'm going to say like 3 or 4 grown adult age Black women in a room, like within 5 minutes, we're talking about relationships, like who got a man, who don't got a man, who trying to get a man, that sort of thing. And that's not to say like, I don't know, empowered and educated and professional women who have their own life goals. But I think it's a reflection of how important relationship and connection are, right? A big part of our organization as a society is around families. And a big way that we think about and talk about families in our society is through relationship and marriage and children, right? So there's kind of this tacit assumption that those pieces kind of go together. And today we want to talk a little bit specifically about Black relationships. I'm probably going to end up talking more about Black heterosexual relationships than same-sex relationships. And that's in part because there isn't a lot of hard data out there about the status of Black same-sex relationships, which I think is problematic for sure. But I think it's also noteworthy and telling about the relationship that we have, I shouldn't say relationship, the connection that we make on a societal level between relationships and marriage and family, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that could be a fall topic to talk about. Tomas, what do you think about gay marriage in the Black community?
Mm-hmm. I see you in your heteronormative show. It's okay. Live your life. Live your life.
No. Owning and putting out there as a, what do I want to say? As a disclaimer for today's show. And it's not at all to be exclusionary. That was my...
Absolutely not. No. And you know what the whole thing is? I don't believe that because we're talking about the kitchen, we should always include what's going on in the living room and the bathroom and the dining room. And I think that while relationships as a whole covers the entire gamut of different types of relationships, what we're focusing on today are more of the heterosexual relationships. And that when you talk about same-sex relationships with people of color, that is a different conversation. It's a unique conversation because there are issues there intersectionally that need to be addressed that I don't think we'll have time to address here and do this topic justice that we're talking about today. So no, but I do understand why you did the disclaimer, because oftentimes people feel excluded And it's like, no, I'm just talking about the entree. We haven't gotten to the dessert, or you know what I mean. So we just gotta let's have one conversation, and then we can sort of like deal with different aspects of it. But this is an important conversation to have in and of itself.
Right. So I think that that's maybe a more simplistic way to kind of say what I'm trying to say. Is like if the conversation today leans way more towards talking about heterosexual relationships, it's not in intentional exclusion of the validity or relevance or importance or celebration of same-sex relationships. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, because I wouldn't want anybody to make a negative assumption about the focus of our conversation. So now that we got all of that out of the way, we're talking about hashtag relationship goals. So, you know, for me, we've had this theme throughout all of our shows, this series, talking about hashtags. And what I love about hashtags is that they give us a really good sense of what's important and what's on people's minds, and kind of what are the big pieces of our current and contemporary experience as a society that resonate with all of us. And so that there is a hashtag relationship goals is telling to me that people, I think we as human beings are, I'm going to rewind. I believe we as human beings are wired to seek connection and relationship with others. And an important way that we do that as we develop in our maturity is through romantic, sexual, intimate relationship. That is an important part of how we grow and develop as individuals, is to want to have that relationship with someone else. And there's lots of different ways we could take a lens on that. Lots of people think about soulmates, or finding the one, or finding that special someone. Whether you believe in that or not is not, I think, really relevant. But I think that there is a quest for people to want to develop an intimate connection with one or other people in an important way throughout their adult relationships, or throughout their adulthood. And that's where hashtag relationship goals comes from. So a lot of times you'll see people who have, they'll be like celebrity couples, or couples that are in the spotlight that we kind of look up to. So I know like a lot of people will follow like Chrissy Teigen and her relationship with John Legend, and people look at, you know, Will Smith and Jada Smith. Some people look at Kanye and Kim, maybe. I don't know. Now, I'm not one of those people, but we look at these relationship stereotypes that are out there kind of in the public eye and set them as standards for what we want for ourselves. I think it's particularly noteworthy in the Black community because there are some challenges to long-term committed relationships in the Black community that reflect lots of different things. I think there's a historical component. There's some social and economic components that go in there and intersect with the racial component that make Black relationships a little bit of a different experience than our white or Latino counterparts, right? So there's a cultural level that goes in there. So I go back to my earlier statement of like, you know, you get some adult Black women in the room, and quickly the conversation turns to relationships and kind of what's working, what's not working, why you can't find a good man, they don't make men like they used to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think we live in fascinating times around those things, and we wanted to just spend a little bit time talking about that today. Tomas, you've been awfully quiet over there. I know you have thoughts.
I got sipping on my water, and I forgot to turn my mic back on.
I need you to focus, man. Focus.
But you don't understand, the temperature here in New York City is blazing, and this water is so cool and refreshing.
Okay, so I'm going to remind, listeners, let me help you understand. Tomas is in New York City. Okay,
That's right. New York City. Brooklyn all day, baby.
whatever. Which is, I don't know how many degrees of latitude north of where I am, which is in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna suggest you get your AC up and together.
Look, you made the choice to go to two steps from Hell's Gates. That was your choice. Okay.
Maybe that's why we're struggling down here for relationships. It's too hot. People don't want.
It's too hot. Don't touch me. What you trying to touch me for? Heat is already touching my skin. Don't touch me.
Get off of me. I feel that way sometimes. No. I just wanted to get your input about celebrity couples as a goal for folks, right? And what do you think that really is about, and what that means?
Well, I think that's problematic in a lot of ways, but I think one of the most interesting things is when I was looking for couples to use for this episode. When it came down to black couples, the one that kept popping up over and over and over again was Barack and Michelle Obama. Mm-hmm. And they are sort of the quintessential a model for black couples. And then I started looking at other different couples going down the way, and I chose Angela Bassett and Vance because they've been together for the longest time. Just the two of them. They have two children together. They're just a beautiful, beautiful couple. And I didn't want to go with Michelle and Barack because that tends to get politicized very quickly, and I'm not interested in that conversation when we're having this one.
Right.
But it brought to light something I find rather interesting, and that is we don't have a lot of solid. And when I say solid, I mean in terms of people working together. I'm not looking at normalcy. I'm not looking at Eurocentric modeling. When I say solid, I do not mean those terms. I mean solid as defined by us, our own relationships and how we work together. There aren't a lot of those out there because a lot of our attention is focused on loving hip hop, loving basketball, loving football, loving soccer,
loving hockey,
loving hockey, right? All of that. Like, we're so focused on these, and we see oftentimes black women acting in ways that don't provide people with appropriate models of how relationships should be. And the black men that are on the shows are often quiet or ineffectual or uninterested in a dialogue that would make a relationship work. So
let's go ahead and be clear. It's called Ratchet TV, right?
right.
It's Ratchet.
Right. Now you taking my job. Stop being so colloquial.
Look, I'm talking to the people. We gotta
right, and that is exactly what it is. It is quite
it's
ratchet. It really is. It really is.
So here's the piece that I think is really important to talk about. So let's be clear for everyone that's listening. If you watch reality TV, I used to watch a lot of reality TV, and really becoming a parent changed my television viewing habits overall. And it stopped me from watching reality TV. I was trying to watch an episode of, I call them Desperate Housewives of Atlanta, but Real Housewives of Atlanta, one time when my daughter was like pre-verbal, so a toddler and pre-verbal. And it was a particularly ratchet episode where some of the characters were, infighting and yelling and cussing at each other and kind of leering towards one another, like maybe a physical altercation was going to break out. And I made the mistake of thinking that because my daughter was in the room but playing with things that she wouldn't pick up on it. But I looked over and noticed that she had stopped what she was doing and she was watching the television. And there was something alluring about what she was watching. And that was it for me. So I haven't watched a lot of Ratchet TV. I really don't keep up with the Housewives or any of the Loves and whatever, and nothing that comes on VH1. But I know that there are lots of people that do follow those shows, watch them intently, and watch the relationship dynamics that play out in those relationships, in those shows. Here's where one part that I think is concerning about that, and that is that's all scripted. It's all made up. It is reality only in the sense that these people aren't provided with specific words and language to say, but there is plotting that happens. There is a story arc that happens. People are placed in particular